Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to learn about what are switch cases, and along with that we will learn about some few concepts or statements that are used with for loops, while loops, or any other control statements to basically have a better control over the flow of execution of a program. Now these statements are the break statement and the continue statement. So let's begin with the break statement. Now, a break statement allows us to exit a loop before it completes its iteration. Now, when do we need this? Now, we basically use this when we need to stop a loop as soon as a certain condition is met. Now, here's what the syntax of a basic break statement looks like. So, we just have the word break followed by a semicolon. Now, usually what happens is we pair the break statement along with some certain condition so that as soon as the condition is hit, our program exits from the loop. Okay, so let's see an example for this. We'll take a very simple example. So let's say I'm writing a for loop for I equal to 1, that is I'm initiating the value, then comes my condition I less than equal to 10. Just a small mistake here, I is an integer data type. Okay, so I have to mention int here along with the last part, that is the increment. Okay, now what I will do here, I will break the loop as soon as I equals to 5. So when I equals to 5, what I will do is I will break the loop. Okay, I will exit the for loop, and otherwise what I will do is I will print the value from 1 to 5. Okay, as soon as I becomes 5, it will exit the loop. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's run the code. So as you can see, it print the value only from 1 to 4. Now why 1 to 4 is because as soon as I is equal to 5, what happened is it broke from the loop and my print statement did not print the value 5. If I put this print statement before the condition, it would have printed the value 5. So let's try that out. If I put print here and I'll compile the same program and run it, this time it will print up to the value 5. Okay, so it also depends on where do you place your statements inside the for loop. Now this is what the break statement does. It basically breaks the loop when a certain condition is met or wherever we put the break statement inside the loop. Okay, now let's come to the continue statement. Now let's say that we don't want to break the flow of execution, but we want to skip the current iteration and move to the next one. So in this case, a continue statement is helpful when we want to skip certain values, but still want the loop to keep running. So what does the continue statement do? It continues the loop and it skips certain iterations. Now we can tell it to skip that a particular iteration based on some specific condition. So in the same way how we write break statements, we can also write continue statements. So if we take the same example, let's say I don't want to print the value 5. Okay, I don't want to print the value 5. So in this case, what I will do is when I is equal to 5, I will just continue. I will skip this iteration and I will move on to the next iteration. So now if I compile and run this program, what will happen is it will print the values from 1 to 10 and it will skip the value 5. So let's go ahead and try this. So as you can see, it has printed the numbers from 1 to 10 without the number 5. So this is about break statements and continue statements in C programming. Now let us look at what are switch statements. Now, switch statements basically allow us to handle multiple conditions more clearly. And this is especially useful when we are comparing a single variable against a list of values. So just to summarize it, basically a switch statement is a control statement or a control structure that tests a variable. Now this is a single variable. Remember, we are testing a single variable against multiple values, and these values are known as cases. Now this is a much cleaner and alternative way to using multiple if-else statements. So rather than using multiple if-else statements for a single variable, I can use a switch case. Now let's have a look at the syntax of a switch statement. Now, the syntax of a switch statement also is quite simple. So I'll just type it down here. First we will write the word switch. Then inside that we will give a variable whose value we want to compare. Okay, we will compare the value of this variable with several different cases or conditions. So how do I write a case? Very simple. I'll just type the keyword case, and I will give a value to that. Okay, I will give a value, and what I will do is if it matches this value, okay, that is if the variable is equal to this value, I will execute some code. And the most important part of this is the break statement. Now what happens if I don't mention the break statement? Now if I don't mention the break statement, any other cases that come after the case 1, let's just write the other cases first. Case 2, if the variable matches case 2, it will execute some code, and then it will break the case. Okay, now what happens if I don't mention the break statement here? Now what happens if I don't mention the break statement is that if my variable matches case 1 and it executes the code, and I do not mention the break statement, it will also execute the other cases which are ahead. So this is what we should make sure, that we should always put a break statement at the end of each case to prevent the code from continuing to the next case. Otherwise, the code will continue to the next case and will compare the value of that variable to other cases. So this is what we want to avoid. And also one thing we need to mention here is that in every switch case, we should also have a default case. Now default case basically states that if none of the values match, okay, if the variable is equal to none of these values, is not equal to any of these values, so in that case we will execute some default code, okay, some default code which should execute when the variable doesn't match a particular case. Okay, so this is execute code when none of the cases match. Now the default case is optional, and we don't need to mention it. Okay, it is optional. So let's see this with an example. Before that, let's have a look at the flow chart. So what happens here in a switch statement or a switch conditional statement? We will have several cases. The value of the variable will be compared with each case. So if case 1 is true, it will execute the statements, and after that it will exit the switch case. If case 1 is false, it will go to the second case. It will compare with the second case. If case 2 is true, then it will execute the statement and it will break from the case. If 2 is false, it will go to case 3. If case 3 is false, it will go to case n. If all the cases are false, it will go to the default case, which will execute some statement, and then it will break from the switch case. Okay. Now let's perform this with an example. So we'll take a very simple example for a switch case. Okay. So let's take a variable int day. Okay, int day. Now we all know that there are 7 days in a week. Now let's say we want to print the day based on the number the user inputs. So if the user inputs number 1, it will print Monday. The user inputs number 2, it will print Tuesday. If the user inputs number 7, it will print Sunday. So what we'll do is we will take an input from the user, enter a number from 1 to 7 for the day of the week. So the user will give us some number, and I will take an input from the user and store in this variable. Now I will have my switch case. Now what my switch case will do is, first I will have the expression or the value which I want to compare. Now in this case, I am comparing day to the numbers. Okay. So case 1, I will be comparing day with the value 1. If it is equal to 1, what it will do? It will print Monday. Okay, it will print Monday. Similarly, I will write 7 other statements like this. Okay, I will write 7 other statements. Case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5, case 6, case 7. So if the value of day matches the number 2, it will print Tuesday. If day is equal to 3, it will print Wednesday. If day is equal to 4, it will print Thursday. If day is 5, it will print Friday. If day is 6, it will print Saturday. And if day is 7, it will print Sunday. Okay. Now what happens if the user inputs a value which is not between 1 to 7? In that case, what will I do is I will execute a default case. Okay, I will have a default case where none of the values match. So in this case, I will say invalid input. The user has not entered a number between 1 and 7. So let's go ahead, run this program and see what do we get. Now I will enter the number 5 and you can see 5 is Friday. Okay. Similarly, if I enter the number 7, it is Sunday. So this is how we can use a switch case to basically compare a variable or a value with different cases and see and execute the appropriate code. Okay. Now, a few important points to remember when working with switch cases is that you should always remember that without that we should mention the break statement. Okay, because without break, what would happen is each case would fall through to the next one, executing all the following cases. Now we do not want that to happen. And another point to remember is that we should use switch statements when we have a single variable to compare against a list of specific values. So that's all for today. If you found this helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe for more tutorials. Thank you and have a good time.